Nuzhat Jafri has been an active member in the diversity and inclusion sector in Ontario. She's also a longtime board member of the Canadian Council of Muslim Women. Her longtime activism spans through the efforts of diversity and inclusion, as well as equity training, women's, and interreligious rights in Canada. She is a presenter at the 2018 Parliament of World's Religions.
Thank you for giving your time.
It's my pleasure.
So you have a workshop today,
Yes.
later today. If you could specifically talk to that.
So the workshop that you wanted me to discuss with you is called Engaging Men and Boys to End Violence in the Family. And the issue of violence against women and girls is a very universal problem and very universal issue. And it is something that we have been dealing with for a very long time in my organization. The organization is called the Canadian Council of Muslim Women. So we have done various projects on the topic of violence against women and girls. And what we were hearing from our communities is that you really need to, yes, women know that they're under, threat or they're attacked.
Yes.
But you really do need to engage men and boys and leaders in our communities to first recognize the problem and do something about it. So the objectives of the workshop, the whole program of engaging men and boys on this issue, is to really unlearn patriarchy and explore links to violence against women and girls and patriarchy, and then question gender roles, and stereotypes. And then, in today's society, it's very, very important because the roles are assigned by society. So it's really unpacking those and redefining them. And then fostering healthy relationships between men and women, boys and girls, within the family as well, and within the larger society. And then last but not least, we're teaching people effective intervention strategies. So if you see violence or if you hear violence or attacks, you are able to intervene. So the workshop actually teaches people on what to do if you see violence, if you hear it, because violence is not just a physical attack. There's emotional violence, there is physical violence, there's psychological violence. So we address all of that. And we help people identify what those types of violence are, because many of those violence acts, whether they're physical or mental or psychological, occur all the time without people knowing that they're actually committing an act of violence against women and girls.
Yes.
So the workshop deals with all of that and provides practical strategies to deal with, if you see it, what to do.
When we hear or discern violence, to the moment that we pass through our victimhood and all of these feelings that the violence brings, from the recognition of it to what we do about it, how does the journey, what does that journey look like?
Well, for the women or girls who experience it, they may not even know that it's happening, especially if it's not physical. Physical, that you're being attacked.
Yes.
But at an emotional level or a psychological level, a man or a boy who constantly puts down their wife or their partner or their girlfriend, and how they're dressed or the kind of food that they cook or, their lack of education or too much education. So they're always receiving a lot of, words that are going into their psyche. And for so many women and girls, these kinds of constant sort of taunts and attacks accumulate. And the woman or the girl loses self-esteem, and they don't know what's actually happening, why they're not feeling empowered to take action. And many women who are in abusive relationships stay. Sometimes they'll give you a reason, it'll be economic, I can't afford to be on my own. Another reason is, what about the children? What will happen to my children?
Yeah.
And oftentimes it's the family of the perpetrator who's also engaged in the violence. They often put the woman down, they blame her for the relationship not working. Now, it's not always completely the fault of the men, because men also are going through difficult times, so they often take it out on the woman.
Yes.
So let's say a man is unemployed, and the employment, the lack of employment is causing them to lose self-esteem. They were supposed to be the breadwinner and they can't earn money.
That's right.
They're often really well educated, especially in Canada. This happens often.
Yes, common.
Especially among immigrant communities. They're professionals in their own country. Let's say they're a doctor or an engineer. They come here, they can't practice their profession. And they try to meet all of the regulations and qualifications, and they keep on getting turned down. So that affects their self-esteem, so they take it out on their families. And I'm not excusing that behavior, but it does happen. So that's why it's very important to unpack why those things happen, and then what to do about them, and support, the whole family, not just the women and girls, but also the men, to recognize what's going on. Why are they behaving this way? And refer them to appropriate resources in the community. They can get counseling, they can get support from the broader community as well. So that's the other thing that the workshop does. It actually points them to places where they can get help.
Part of the issue is societal, so this rearrangement of society.
So like I said, recognizing gender norms and stereotypes is very, very important.
Right.
In fact, it's so first we work with patriarchy and what it means, in terms of women and girls and how that's affected all of our societies. And then the next is really unpacking those gender norms and stereotypes, because stereotyping a woman as someone who's going to be submissive, she's going to take the abuse, she's not going to take any action because she's disempowered, she's oppressed, that's a stereotype. But women have amazing agency. They can act on their own, but they just need to know what they can do. But many, many women, of course, are able to have that agency and act on their own. But if a woman is abused constantly, she really does need a lot more support, because it's a cumulative thing, that kind of abuse and that kind of put down.
What has been some of the results on this? I know your program has made it to schools, made it to...
Well, we've basically done, yes, we have talked to schools. We have talked to, mosques and community leaders as well. We presented this workshop to them. So whether or not there's sort of a marked relationship between a reduction of violence in any of our communities, as you know, I think it's 1 in 3 women has experienced some kind of violence, or it's probably, 1 in 2, something like that. But it's just very prevalent.
Yes.
Because, there's so many different forms of violence. There's harassment. We're harassed constantly, because of being female. So it still happens, and it happens in very subtle ways. And so the idea is to recognize it and teach people. You said, what are the results? People just being aware of it, people being aware of their behaviors.
So there's been more awareness of it.
Yes.
Which is
and
great.
And also, not just awareness, but I think there is a recognition within our own communities that this happens in our communities. Just like it happens in the broader society, it happens in our communities. So what are we going to do about it? We don't want to lose the contribution of women and girls to our communities, to our families, to the broader society. They need to be economically independent, they need to be empowered, they need to be educated. And the best way to do that is by recognizing that if you keep on attacking them or putting them down, they cannot be contributing members of your community, your family, and your society.
Yeah, I'm grateful that our time is done, but I'm grateful that despite these challenges, you ever more forcefully continued your work and
Absolutely.
affecting other lives. Thank you so much.
Well, thank
for
you.
your
It was a
time.
pleasure talking
Yeah,
to you.
you as well.